Hey out there, mad scientists. Welcome to Module 6. Today's the day where we discuss plant growth hormones and regulators, also known as PGRs in the industry. There are only two main categories of PGRs. There's a plethora of PGRs, but there's only two main categories, and those are going to be cytokinins and auxins. They both have different functions, and learning to use them in the proper way and in the proper ratios are what will make you or break you in tissue culture. First off, let's talk about the auxins. Auxins are for root formation. Auxins cause roots. The most commonly used auxin on the market is IBA, or endo-3-butyric acid. That is the basic PGR that's going to be in any of your major name brand rooting hormone mixtures, such as Clonex or Bonide rooting powders, or even the Take Root powder. Those are generally a small percentage of IBA mixed with some sort of caking agent, such as cornstarch or talc or some other kind of powdered caking agent. Next, we have cytokinins. Cytokinins are for shoot formation. That's what's going to give us multiplication. So auxins are for roots, cytokinins are for shoots. The most common cytokinin is going to be BAP, or 6-benzylamino-purine. Now there are multiple hormones or multiple PGRs that are in each one of these categories. In auxins, the three top auxins that you'll find on the market are IAA, which is endo-3-acetic acid, IBA, which is endo-3-butyric acid, which is what I prefer, and then you have NAA, which is naphthalene acetic acid. And that one, I do use it with auxins, but I use it a little bit more for callus formation, and we'll discuss that a little further down the road. A plant growth hormone, regulator that falls into this category is 2,4-D, or 2,4-dichlorophenoxylacetic acid. 2,4-D, or 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, is generally found at a feed store or a garden center in the weed control area. You'll find that where you can mix that down and spray for weeds, and it stunts the growth of weeds. So you can find that probably in your local area. As far as your cytokinins go, the most common cytokinins that you'll find on the market are BAP, which is 6-benzylamino-purine, or kinetin, or TDZ. TDZ is thidiaziron. Thidiaziron, I like to use it in very, very low concentrations to help with the promotion of callus formation as well. So TDZ along with 2,4-D are two things that I use more for callus formation. You guys have just went through the initiation process where you have put your explants, you sterilized them and put them into an MS media, which is Mirashigian Scooch. They're in a nutrient-rich media, and it should have been a couple of weeks now since you've introduced them. You should know by now whether or not you have any types of contamination. Now, you shouldn't really see much growth. At this point, you shouldn't see hardly anything at all. No growth is better than bad growth or contamination. As long as you've made it through clean to this point, it's about time to go ahead and make some mixture to get these things going in a different direction, okay? The very first portion is putting them into culture and just seeing if they're even sterile and can go further. Once we've got that to a science, it's time to go ahead and start introducing these plant growth hormones and regulators because they're the most expensive part of the process, to tell the truth. So now let's go over this again. We've got cytokinins and we've got auxins. Cytokinins are for shoot growth. Auxins are for root growth. You will generally use a combination of both in your mixtures. You won't normally just pick one or the other. I have done that, and I know that for multiplication, I find much better results when I use them in combination. For rooting, the very first time I put it into rooting, the first media change from multiplication to rooting, I do use a mixture, and as I go forward, I switch to only auxins at the end, because all you're looking for is roots. You've already done all the multiplying that you want to do. It's just time to go ahead and get those roots elongating. So those are the two main categories. Now I would like to touch on one more PGR, and that's called the gibberellins, or gibberellic acid, also known as GA3 if you're looking to purchase that. GA3 works fantastically for cell elongation and for breaking dormancy of certain seeds. There's a lot of plants that just have trouble getting really good shoot growth and formation. GA3 thrown into the mix really helps with that. Once you get to that point. Now there again, that's an add-on. It is optional. I find that just your basic cytokinins and auxins work great on their own, but there are certain instances where you would want to introduce a gibberellin as well. Those are your main categories of PGRs, or plant growth hormones and regulators. Let's go down and talk about how much you should use. If you are going into multiplication, I generally tell people to start with BAP, which is 6-benzylamino-purine. It is a synthetic growth hormone that works very well. It's autoclavable and easy to use. If you're dealing with something like kinetin is an organic, it's a natural hormone, and it can only be added after the autoclave, which means that you have to add it in a flow hood. It's not good to do in a still air box, and it's much harder because you have to do syringe filtration. One thing to take note of are the types of hormones that you're using, and see if they're autoclavable or not. I will provide a full list of your most commonly used PGRs along in your course material that you can look at to see whether or not they are safe to autoclave or not. Many of these compounds will degrade if you put them in a pressure cooker, so they have to be added afterwards. When it comes to your auxins, many of your auxins are going to need to be added afterwards. Gibberellic acid needs to be added afterwards. So those are things you need to know, because if you put those into your autoclave, you're just throwing your money away. They're not going to do what they're supposed to, or they take a lot more to do the same job. So we will walk through that in future videos step by step, so you can see exactly how to do that. For today's video, for Module 6, I wanted you to understand the basics of what what PGRs are, what they do, and how to use them. So a basic recipe for multiplication is going to be 2 to 3 milliliters of cytokinin to half to 1 milliliter of your auxin. Okay, I personally like to use IBA for my auxin and 6-BAP for my cytokinin. For the BAP, I would add 2 to 3 milliliters, and then for my auxin, I would use 1/2, which would be 0.5 milliliters, up to 1 milliliter. 0.5 seems to be a really good sweet spot. It works well in the multiplication mix without giving me too much root growth while I'm trying to get cell elongation and shoot growth. So 2 to 3 milliliters of your 6-BAP and 0.5 milliliter to 1 milliliter of your auxin. When it comes time for root growth, that's a little bit different. When it comes to root growth, we want to do this with almost the opposite amount, as a matter of fact. I like to use 1 to 2 milliliters of auxin, which would be like your IBA, and then maybe 0.5 milliliter of cytokinin, like 6-BAP. Now let's talk about callus formation. This would be the only other instance where we want to do something different. That's where we want to grow a mass of tissue that is undifferentiated. It doesn't know whether it wants to be a shoot or a root. It is just cell tissue. Now, why would you want to create callus tissue? Callus tissue is the magical way of truly multiplying your stock. Most of us, when we put when we put our first explants in, we're just looking for multiplication of the explant. We just want to see multiple shoots and plantlets grow off of it so that we can take them apart and make more of them. Yes. The fastest way to do that is to use a multiplication media. However, if you're trying to do this for a business or on a large scale production, creating callus tissue is the best way of doing that. And it does take a lot longer, and it many times will stall out in the callus phase. That's why I don't recommend it for beginners. I do recommend it a little further on down the line. And we will have a module specifically on callus formation. So don't worry, we will cover that again. We're going to revisit callus formation in a couple of modules from now. But for today, we're just covering plant growth hormones and regulators, what they are, what they do, and how to use them. Okay, so let's go over it one more time. Let's do a recap on it. Your two main categories: auxins, cytokinins. Auxins promote roots, cytokinins promote shoots. You use them in combination with each other. The more cytokinins to auxin ratio, the more shoots you get. The more auxin to cytokinin ratio, the more roots you get. If you're using closer to equal amounts, then you get callus formation. That's it, folks. That is the basics of plant growth hormones and regulators. If you can just remember those basics right there. Shoots and roots. That's all we're looking for. Shoots and roots. Sometimes callus. Shoots, roots, callus. All right, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's been informative and that I didn't just blow your mind with all of that. I'm trying to keep these modules easily digestible, very simple, and short and to the point. There's no need in overloading you with things that you're not ready for yet, or overloading you with information that you're not going to be able to use at this point in your experimentation. So, one more time, let's recap this. Two main categories of PGRs. That is cytokinins and auxins. Cytokinins promote shoots, auxins promote roots. Your main cytokinins out there are going to be 6-benzylaminopurine, kinetin, or thidiaziron. Those are your top number 1, 2, and 3 cytokinins. When it comes to auxins, your top 3 auxins are going to be IBA, which is endo-3-butyric acid, IAA, which is endo-3 acetic acid, or NAA, which is naphthalene acetic acid. So you've got 3 cytokinins and 3 auxins that I just told you about. Those are the easiest to use. They're the most readily available. You can find them almost anywhere. If you're looking for them, I do sell them in a stock solution of 2 milliliters each on our shop, and you can check that out. If you have any questions about any of these or how much to use, by all means drop it in the Discord server in your TC questions. That's what I'm here for. This is probably one of the most critical parts of making your media, is learning what concentrations to use. How much PGRs do I add to the mixture to get the result that I'm looking for, depending on the genus and species. And it does vary. That's why I can't give you a complete recipe. I can give you a basic recipe, but giving you a full-on recipe that's going to work with every genus is almost impossible. If you happen to have specific questions that are outside of the parameters of what we've spoken about today, then please ask those questions in the TC question forum columns in the Discord server, and I will be happy to get with you on that. As far as PGRs go, I am writing an entire book on PGR recipes and protocols that are genus, species, and subspecies specific. So if you want to know how to do allocations only, well then we've got a full chapter on nothing but allocations. If you want to learn cacti and xerophytes, we've got cacti and xerophyte covered. If you want to learn all aeroids, there's an aeroid chapter. All of these things are covered in detail in the upcoming book. However, at this point in your studies, we're going to keep it real simple. If you want shoots, you use more cytokinins. If you want roots, you use more auxins. If you want callus formation, you're going to use closer to equal parts. That's it. I hope you found this informative and fun. If you have any questions, I look forward to answering them in the future. You guys go and grow. Have a great day, and post your experiments and your progress in the Discord server. I look forward to seeing that.